Welcome back, folks. Sorry for the delay. We were trying to get Conrad Bassett Bouchard up on stream against Wellington Jagiri, but as I mentioned, they started their game on a different board a few minutes before we were able to nab them. This is difficult for me to facilitate as I am in Philadelphia across the continent from the tournament, so I have to text people to run over and grab folks. But we're excited to get different faces up here on stream. We're featuring Alec Sjoholm of the States versus Harshan representing the UK, and excited to see what this match will bring. Once again, I'm Matt Canik, joined by Shan Abbasi of Canada. We'll be doing some commentary for you all over this game. Alec to play first, and a nice draw, EJKLORW. I think right away, either the play of Joker or Jowler, both great options for Alec. He's opting to play Joker here. I think I'd have played Jowler for the defense, but Alec is a great player for a reason, and he's probably got his reasons for making this play, maybe looking to cash in that W next turn. Harshan to respond now, and I missed this rack as a shadow is being cast on it. There we go. CTEEIRT. So he is going to be very happy to see that R floated out there. He'll have two bingos that play using it, either director down to the R or redirect from the R, both scoring 86. And just like that, folks will be off to the races. Sean, do you have familiarity with either of these players?
Not really, but I do know that we have seen great quality play, and that Alec is a previous, I believe, North American champion. So I think that we can expect some fireworks, especially with the game opening up nice and wide and high scoring with a 5-letter play of Joker, and now an 8 coming down in a moment.
Yeah, so director or redirect. One question that comes up with the word of director with an ER like that, is that an adjective, more direct, or is it an alternate spelling of director, the noun? Does that word take an S is really what it comes down to. So if I'm Harshan, I'd much prefer to play redirect unless I know what letter I can or can't put behind that word. And for those watching at home, director is an adjective, a comparative form of direct. It does not take an S. I wonder if we'll see that come into play down the road. EELMNOW, the pull for Alec. And he will not be able to bingo, but he will have two different extremely high scoring plays through that C. Two different double doubles available, both welcome and Newcome in EWCOME. Both score 56. And Alec has already seen welcome, and he's going to drop that down for 56 points to pull ahead 104 to 86. So if you're going to get bingoed on the first turn, you'd like to average 52 points per turn to keep up with it. And that's what Alec has done here. Harshan, we do not know what he's drawn yet. I put the clock back on Alec. I guess maybe Alec thinks he miscounted or Harshan recounting. I don't know why Alec's clock is running right now. I don't know why it was restarted either. Okay, but Alec noticing and turning play back to Harshan. We'll see what his rack is in just a moment. Welcome does have 3 back hooks, a D, an R, and an S. So both of those, or any of those, likely to be drawn. And Alec with an incredible post double draw, ADENTT blank. So 48 points on his first turn, 56 on his second, and now a bingo to come on his third turn. But Harshan with a blank of his own, AADGNP blank. Wow. We are seeing fireworks on that game, on this board. That D going to help Harshan make very high scoring bingos. He'll have grandpas, padnags, and padangs, PADANGS or PADNAJS. Wow, off to the races. Y'all said you wanted another matchup. Well, how about a bunch of points here between Harshan and Alec?
Yeah, I had a feeling after we saw Joker following with Director that we were looking for a barn burner, and that's already starting to play out that way. We'll see if it slows down post these 2 bingos that we're going to see, but for now, that's going to make this a very high-scoring start. And nice that it's not just a high scoring start from bingos, it's also a high scoring non-bingos of Joker and Welcome, which were both really nice.
I'm going to place the over-under for this game at 21.5 total plays made across the game, as we've had a 5, a 6, a 7-tile play, and 2 more 7-tile plays to come. 100 tiles in the game of Scrabble to be 21 turns or less means you have to average nearly 5 tiles per play. What do we think, chat? Over or under 21.5 total turns in what's turning out to be a barn burner of a game? So Padnag's coming down now, 90 points for Harshan, and Alec has already set up a 10 blank on his rack. We'll play to the D at the top with attended, one of several bingos. Dentated also playing to or from that D. So Alec to score 80 points after Harshan scoring 90 points. Both players cashing in their blanks as soon as they draw them.
Yeah, that's a nice choice by Harshan. And a Padnag apparently is a horse that moves along at an easy pace. Sorry, moving along at an easy pace. And this game is moving on at a fast pace, which is also, and then, Padnags is an anagram of Padang, which is a field, especially a playing field, and it comes from Malay. So already the international words and interesting words coming down on the board. Alec already pondering what his response bingo is going to be. He's got a number of choices. He was looking at attended a moment ago. I think that's quite likely going to be another choice play. But he has to do the little bit of work here to double check all the possible options. He's got like detonate as well. I think. Oh, sorry. Well, detonate is there, but that's not a great option. But I was just looking through overlaps with the under welcomed, but it doesn't seem like anything's going to be better than attended. That's what he does.
Yeah, so attended to come down, and Harshan, the scoring not stopping. He's picked up an X now, and that's going to allow him to play beneath the E in welcomed for a boatload of points. Annex or Yex look to be options for him to score, but killed net more than 50 points yet again this game. Wow. Lots of points being scored. My goodness. 80 for Alec puts him ahead narrowly, 184 to 176. But that lead certain to be short-lived as Harshan with big counterplays. Annex, Yex, Rex, or just EX, all fitting underneath welcomed. Shan, would you play longer with the play like Annex here, or would you maybe hold on to those ends and dump the Y instead?
In many circumstances, I would pick Yex, but this time I think I will say Annex is better because the Y has still a lot of potential to do other things on this board. He's got the Y under the M for welcome to make my and make a play potentially in one direction and another. There's overlaps or underlaps, rather, I should say, for Joker that could potentially be helpful. So there's really not that much advantage to say hold N and AR, and where an N can be usually a very good tile. Two of them can be annoying, and I think for that reason I would pick Annex.
Yeah, I'd play Annex here as well, and Harshan making the same choice. So yet again, long play, 5 tiles this turn. We're looking like we might bust that under, though Alec finally pulling a rack that isn't going to score many points. I think we're going to see Juvie, Juvie here, as Vuugi, some strong negative synergy. But Juvie's going to be easily his best play to work out of this. Outside of that play, he's only got options like Giver or Verge, Virge, above welcome, far inferior plays that score about the same but hold the dreaded UU combination. And just like that, folks, somebody has finally played fewer than 5 tiles on a move. So you know he's going to draw bingo after this, right?
Yeah, and it looks like this is likely that the case where the game will, in terms of the scoring, high scoring plays at least theoretically, would slow down a little bit. We're going to see what the post this draw is looks like. Oh, Ness comes down onto Harshan's rack here, so it could be something. Oh, okay. Doesn't look quite so bingo-y anymore, but it's
Oh,
still
it is
pretty promising.
bingo-y, though. He's got a bingo through the A in Annex. Oh, my goodness. I'll leave it there for a minute. There we go.
Is,
Thank
is,
you for
is this an ism word?
it is an ism word,
Okay, I think I
partyism for
spotted it here.
67.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay, let's keep the party going then. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's that's pretty awesome. When I saw this, I thought, oh, not quite a bingo rack after all. But no, I was wrong. We'll see if he spots it. Devotion to a political party is the definition of partyism. So, those of you in the chat who are inclined toward a political flame war, chill out on the partyism, but don't stop partying. Um, that's that's going to be a good find if he sees it. I mean, there's going to be, temptation sometimes to play especially when if a player's a fast player, they might just say, oh, okay, let me just see how I can play off MY or PRY or TRY and score some points, and not really think fully around what's available for bingos. But there are a number of floating vowels, so that gives a person a pause to think it through, and hopefully that will result in Harshan finding this single available bingo. And if not, he still has lots of ways to score and position himself well for the following turn.
Yeah, partyism a tough spot. I wouldn't even be thinking about a bingo out of this rack. And that A kind of sneaky over there, not necessarily your traditional bingo line either. If he doesn't spot the bingo, I expect a GYMP from the G and Padnags, but he's going to forego that and sacrifice 9 points, PUMY, instead the play here. So a miss of partyism and perhaps a miss of GIMP as well. Oof, this could come back to hurt him significantly. That's got to be a blunder.
Yeah, PUMY getting a challenge here now, and we'll see how that um, how Alec responds to this play. Which when you look at this play, you say, okay, my opponent is unloading a bunch of constants. They might be a constant heavy position. So definitely, a miss for Harshan, but it was a tough find of to see that, to even hunt for bingos and then find that specific one through an A. But he's kept a good lead, so he may get his a second shot at bingoing. He got the extra 5 points for Pumi, so at least that's something beneficial, and it's a noun. Pumi is a pebble. Also, can be spelled with an Alec responding very quickly with a Z bomb for 44 points.
And Harshan, one thing about Pumi is it does set up the front hook of an S. He's holding on to that S and he's pulled very nicely, though he won't get to cash in the S here because he's going to be forced to bingo with a yeast year through the E and juvie for 62.
Yep, that's definitely one of those things where you miss a bingo, but you keep such a strong lead that you have a good chance of bingoing the following turn. Yeast year, we call it baby bingo, a low scoring bingo, considering you're getting 50 points, but not crossing that 70 point mark. But partyism wasn't either going to be a huge score in of itself, and would have also created some openings on the board. So overall, it doesn't look like Harshan is suffering too badly from that specific miss, considering he got an additional 5 points, and now it's going to bingo again. So this game is still running at a pretty high pace. We'll have to see what it means for Alec's next play.
Yeah, so Harshan now nursing a 10-point lead, though the bingo to put him ahead significantly. When you draw these nice tiles, we call them satire racks. You have the letters in satire. You want to I mean, you're almost certain to bingo, but you also want to take your time, make sure you find the best one. We do know that Yeast Year is the highest scoring option and the only playable bingo for Harshan here, and he is pulling the trigger on it now, but diligently taking his extra time to make sure he's made the right call here. Alec is going to have an interesting decision on his hands now. That S is going to yield points behind Juvie. You can hook an S on that word and add 16 points to your play. A play like BUS would score very, very well for him, but maybe he wants to hold on to this S to cash it later. He's also got options BIG or GIB in the top right corner alongside pad nags, making PI and AB or PI and AG, depending on what he wants to do to open this board. It's also got BRUS forming juvies in the bottom, but GII is a pretty scary leave. I don't know, Sean, are you looking to cash the S here for points, or would you rather hold it?
I would hold it. Yeah, I think playing a play like Gib in the top right corner is fairly standard. I mean, the Q is still out, so pulling out with the if you while you're holding the U, you know would be fortunate because SQOUIR would combine fairly well with a few other letters. So I think that playing Gib is a good way to go. It's interesting because this is perhaps the first play of the game we've seen where the top play was not, or it wasn't just between one or two top plays, but it's more complex choice to be made here. And I feel like after doing some evaluation, I think Gib is what's going to come down.
And Gib, indeed, what's going to come down. So Alec looking to keep this rack flexible and try to bingo next turn. We'll see. Another I, another U could be big trouble, but an E or an O could yield a bingo. We'll see what he pulls here as Harshan now to respond. BDHILNO on his rack. With the lead, you got to feel good. With options to score, got to feel even better. But how does he want to score those points? BOH above welcomed looks to be the obvious option here, forming OWE. And Hex could also play it alongside Padnags, the same three tiles, sacrificing just 2 points. You get 35 in the top left, 33 if he forms A, B, G, O, and SH. But it would partially block that new bingo line Alec has set up. That will open up some more possibilities. Harshan could also opt to smash down on the gas pedal. BHINDI playing through the I in Yeastier for 36 points. Another high scoring option. Or perhaps he elects to put the kibosh on all of the scoring from the KY through the H or through the S, dropping KYBOSH to keep things tight. That's not a good option. I just wanted to make that joke. But all right. So, Sean, would you play BOH or would you open things up with Bindi here?
I would definitely play BOH. I feel like there's not that much to be gained from playing aggressively enough to open up the board, and LIND seems like a pretty solid lead with what you potentially are drawing into. So I mean, it takes a bit of work on a turn like this because there's so many places on the board and different little combinations. You got to think through your threes, fours, fives, sixes potentially for what words fit or don't fit. So it takes some time to come to it. But I think in the end, probably unless he's got an option that I've not thought of, I'd expect BOH is preferential over Bindi.
Yeah, I think BOH just such a standard play here on E could yield bingos. The board starting to run out of opportunities for bingos, overlapping a Yeastier or overlapping GIB, probably the best way to do so. I am always afraid with a lead like this to get stuck with the rack of a bunch of one pointers, though, and be unable to score as my opponent begins to. Those leaves can make you very reliant on a bingo next turn, but BOH just looks to be such a good option. I think it's hard to bypass that. There are several tiles that will give Alec a bingo out of this rack. IORSTUU looks so awful, and yet there are 4 potential 8s depending on floaters that he is given. I don't expect him to get one here. Harshan doesn't have any of those tiles on his rack, but there's a fun little puzzle for you guys in chat. What are the 4 8s you can make with Alec's 7-tile rack?
I can find one with the V. That's the one that strikes me, and it does. Yeah, it's just one of those racks where it's kind of misleading. You might look at it and see the 2 U's and the O and think, oh my gosh, there's no way that there's anything. But yeah, there are 8s. However, nothing for Alec now, which places a really difficult decision to be made. How much do you just focus on balancing your rack versus trying to squeeze a few more points somewhere. What are the options? You want to be able to deal with those U's, but playing off one or two, or just focusing more on the vowels can get very difficult. I don't see the obvious play. I mean, just dumping umu or something is one way that a lot of players might go. But with Alex, deep word knowledge and also strategic mind, I think there's a possibility that he's got some other tricks up his sleeve.
I think the play here has to be Utus or Urus underneath Yeast Year, forming Juvies and YU. Those do open this board up quite a bit. Big scoring opportunities, especially with an unseen Q. But I think maybe you've got to try to open this board up. Alec feels otherwise, dropping just UTU, 17 points, IORS to leave now, and we'll see if he's able to pull a bingo next turn. ADEIILN now for Harshan, and he's got a big decision to make as well here. What do I do with these tiles? Do I try to get caught up fishing? Do I play something standard from the G? GADI, GAID would hold nicely, EILN. Or do I keep things tight and score a lot of points? Underneath the tended, he could play Diane, or its anagram Dane, DAINE, 5 overlaps for 29 points, and keep things nice and tight. Big decision here. I'm not sure what the right answer is. These decisions so difficult in Scrabble, but we'll see what he opts to do here. I'm unfamiliar with his game, so I can't even make a prediction as to what he'll do.
Yeah, for myself, I guess, inclined toward the fishy plays, even though that often can unravel a game that's going well for you if you draw poorly. But I kind of like the option of maybe playing div and pi. That's a short little play that could do the trick as far as leaving the onus on Alec to either make a play that opens the board, or because I feel like the lane for that's available through Padnags and others from Yeast Year do provide some, as well as the hook on AB, provide some opportunities that synergize well with that potential leave. Definitely, the D is a nice bingo tile in of itself, so it's also a debate of which tile to play, which 2 tiles or 3 tiles to play if you are trying to retain more bingo prone tiles. But I don't think that the option of like really playing a lot of tiles is the way that I would personally go.
Yeah, tough decision here. We'll go ahead and display the unseen tile pool. There are 24 tiles in the bag, and it's a rather interesting bag. You can see Q, V, W, just about the only ugly tiles in there. And otherwise, a good mix of vowels and consonants, maybe slightly vowel heavy, but a lot of O's and very few E's unseen. Going to make it a little bit tougher to pull bingos.
Some interesting comments here. We've got a comment in the chat saying that they feel that Adam feels that Diane is too pretty to ignore under attended. Another comment is that he should play the word India, which proper nouns are often not allowed, but that one is also a common word from the NATO phonetic alphabet. And so some interesting options. This goes to show when you have these high probability common letters, how many different possibilities get created. And sometimes it's kind of a headache because you don't really ever really know, hey, did I make the right move? It's not as obvious when you've got so many options. And it looks like he's thinking of nail. He's going with nailed. He's going for the 6. So he's not in denial. He knows that he can turn over some letters and find some good stuff in the bag. That's probably where his mind is going. He's also making the lanes more difficult for Alec. So this is an approach, and it's a sort of philosophy. Interesting to see that he has gone for the aggressive tile turnover and lane blocking approach. We'll see how it pays off in his refreshed tile rack.
Yeah, scoring a decent number of points, but I think getting rid of that E could be costly. Only two in the bag. He may have some junky racks, and this pull going to be important for Harshan, although he does have a commanding lead, 84 points. Alec has spotted Roshi, the very nice underlap, Roshi, underneath Yeastier, and that's going to be a big play. Open this board up, set up his C all at the same time. If he can go find some of those E's now, this might be a game yet. Roshi scoring 49 to put Alec down 348 to 383. And a rather ugly pull for Harshan, AAIOQTW, means we might yet have a game on our hands. I do wonder if Harshan left perhaps too much on the table, trying to knock out lines with that nailed play. Alec now possibly a threat just to outrun without a bingo. So we'll see if that play backfires on Harshan or if it looks brilliant at the end of this game. Looks like we are also seeing a challenge on Roshi. I believe just the one word is going to be +5. So now Alec pulls within 30 points, 49 +5 on the play. Harshan to play. AAQOTW, I don't remember. AAIOQTW. But this Q, rather clunky, only one good spot to play it with the G and Gib, QI and GI. But that gives up enormous plays to Alec. If Alec has an I on his rack, Harshan now in trouble with this Q draw. And I'm not sure what he's going to do to get out of this situation. But we've seen a big pivotal turn. I think this play of nailed is going to backfire hard on Harshan.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact is that yes, he wants to get rid of the Q, but he doesn't really have a good way to do it. Not one that is, scores or really makes his rack really balanced and whatever. So I kind of in this position now feel that he should perhaps try to be a little patient. There probably will be some opportunities to deal with the Q. There is the possibility of that fourth U coming out at some point onto his rack. So I feel maybe he should try to see what he can do with the other tiles, like with a word like, I don't know, maybe not Awato, because you don't want to necessarily give up your flexibility on QAT or the A's for Kadi. But if he can play a little bit short using the W and one or two other tiles, that would probably be all he can. The optimal thing for me right now for him to do. But it is definitely a tough position that the choice of nailed has got him nailed into. The other thing I noticed is that Roshi was a really really nice play, and I wanted to comment on that because it's not only a great word knowledge, but he got the extra 5 points. So Alec picked up that nickel back that he gave up to Harshan for Pumi earlier. So we'll see how this plays, but I definitely think that this is an opportunity now for Alec to potentially close the margin and turn this into a game where he's not going to be fully dependent on bingoing in order to close the gap. He'll be able to gain some ground after Harshan's turn.
Yeah, and I just think that's some of the danger with a play like nailed. While it does put you up by about 80 points with that juvie spot available, with still some spot for dynamic opportunities on the board, you set yourself up to maybe be outrun and you get rid of some great tiles at once. I don't know. We may see this backfire. I think the miss on Diane beneath the tended may be costly for Harshan here, especially with about not a worst case scenario, but not the best pull in this queue. It looks like he's set up QAT now, looking to shed the Q. Where's this going to go?
I don't think QAT plays anywhere like solid. I mean, you can just play Q and T through an A, but not sure where he's looking. Oh, he's looking at cuts. Oh, it's pluralized. Okay, so that's 22.
Yeah, okay.
This is a justifiable score, although the leave leaves much to be desired. But maybe it's just one less thing to worry about once that queue is unloaded. He can move on from that. So that's interesting, and he does draw that fourth U after all line and S. So maybe had he played the W and the O or something, he might have been in a stronger position after all. But at least he scored 22 points. He keeps a little bit of a margin for Alec to try to climb through. And if he's able to balance his rack in the following turn, which may still be upward climb, but he'll still be in a fairly strong position. Um, it's definitely one of those things where, when you are looking at a board that's open and you're playing at this level, you think of maybe a play like nailed closing lanes becomes so satisfying to you, just because there's always that paranoia that, oh, that if I don't do it, bingo may come there, and I may live to regret it. So I feel like that might have been part of the rationale for choosing nailed, and ending up in this sort of pathway where we're strolling through some difficult racks. But now the onus is on Alec to see how he can climb up this hill. It's not a huge hill, but he does need to keep scoring and keep his rack balance to stay close to Harshan.
I like the play of Fice at the bottom for Alec, Fice, or maybe Ficin, a similar version, Ficin, making S or SIF. You can't get burned with that C there because all the H's are gone. It would appear to fork the board, but SIF only takes a T on the back. So the left side of the board, not a line, but the right side of the board and how it opens that side up. It'll be tough for Harshan to address without once again sacrificing significant points to block that off. So I think Alec Fice or Ficin with SIF got to be his play here.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if you would consider just playing if. I mean, yes, he would take an S, and there are no T's remaining, so that does create a somewhat dangerous spot for an F, for an S. But the leave of CEILN with the floating D out there might be tempting, and there is another somewhat less efficient line under yeast year to go across. So the opportunities to bingo, I feel like, are not like out of the question. Whereas if you play Feist, you're still opening a maybe an easier line while giving up your bingo prone tiles.
Big decision here for Alec. Yeah, the IF play basically gambles that you pull one of the last two S's, and Harshan does not have one currently. Otherwise, I think it just gets outrun. I think you've got to wield that C. You've got to play Feist or Feist in here, keep the scoring pressure on, and also create an opportunity on this board.
Yeah, interestingly, SIF does not take an S because it's an adjective that comes from South Africa, meaning disgusting. So that's an interesting factor in this game, and I'm sure these players at this level know that. So if the F does get hooked there for the big score, we'll see in what fashion it does that.
Round 12 pairings have just populated. We've got a fun decision to make. Oh man, lots of country v country matchups. Will versus Conrad Bassett Bouchard, and a matchup of Americans, David Elgar versus Russell Honeybun, and a matchup of Australians. Some cool stuff. I think likely either try to get Sammy Okasaga and Wellington on board one, or Will versus Conrad. Both good matchups. We'll see. We'll see. One of those is going to get picked. I'll work with the team behind the scenes and figure one of those out. But good matchups in either case for y'all coming forward. With Harshan down to just 5 minutes, too, if I'm Alec and I can sort of catch back up score-wise, maybe I feel I can sneak out an end game in this situation. A lot of junk unseen, FGOOOOUVW. I can hope my opponent gets caught up with some of those. Us at home, we do know Harshan with a terrible rack right now as well. And Harshan may not have the time to figure out an optimal end game sequence. Maybe I can swindle this game that way. I think this play of Feist or Feisen has to come down, and I think every second you spend is another second. Maybe you're losing some win.
There's definitely an argument to be made that when your opponent is low on time in general, and it seems like you're going to have a complicated end game, that it's better to play more quickly. There's also an argument to be made that you should play, if you're debating between a play between using a couple of tiles or more tiles, that playing short means the game will will have more tiles to be played and will take longer, and therefore have more complexities to work out. So maybe playing a couple of tiles less with if would allow Harshan to give Harshan more struggles with the clock. But 5:45, some players are able to pick up their speed, and not get into too much time trouble, and sort of overcome that. But right now, the issue is for Harshan, he's got a pretty terrible rack, and he's hoping that the next play gives him something more that he can do than what he's probably already looking at, which I assume is Wu or something in the top corner. Maybe he's got something else that he can do, but reality is that it would be really beneficial for him if Alec gave him some obvious little play. But the thing is, right now, Alec is probably making a very critical decision for the outcome of this game, and therefore he's taking ample time to try to figure out which direction is most likely to provide him a way to victory.
Big decision, absolutely a big decision coming up here for Alec, and I am not sure what we're going to see. He's going to need a nice draw after these plays in any case. I think I'm most drawn to Fison now. Try to pick up one of those S's, retain that E that could be so important as we get into the end of this game. I think FICIN the play.
Yeah, one of the complexities of this is that he's holding the last N as well. So N is a great bingo tile normally, but he's not going to pick up one of those. So if he does choose to play Fison, which is a completely reasonable and very strong play, I think the real struggle is will I get into a bingo situation next turn, or do I need to necessarily bingo in order to catch Harshan? With maybe a 20 point or something deficit after I make my next play. So that's something that I think he's trying to work through. Is this going to be a battle to a bingo, or is this just going to be a bit of trench warfare that I can draw some good stuff and overcome? Part of this is also thinking about the last play of cut. What does it telegraph? Does it mean that my opponent might be just playing and balancing the rack, or did they just look for a way to unload the queue? Because you had to kind of think through what else was available for that queue. Was there anything really good? And he might look at this pool and think, actually, hey, you know what? There weren't that many things that Harshan could have done with the queue that would have been plausible. So maybe he doesn't have a great rack.
So if coming down, I am not a fan of this. I think this is an equity forward play. I think you're setting up an S and only turning over 2 tiles. I think this is more likely than not a losing play for Alec here, but it's hard to break up that combination of CEILN with the floating D. He'll need to draw a bingo here to get back though, and he will not. He'll miss the S's. He'll miss a bingo. I think you needed to play Feis or Fison in that situation. AIOOSUW, the rack now for Harshan. That big S spot set up, and he is unable to do anything about it. To me, if I'm Harshan, I feel trouble as well, as if maybe looks to be an S setup for Alec. Now I'm paranoid. Now I'm scared. What do I do to address that spot, or do I leave it alone and try to run?
I don't think he can do anything, even if he were to try to do it. I mean, I can't imagine that you can play anything there without taking a significant point sacrifice or even just making the spot worse. So probably after doing a little bit of investigation on that spot, he's going to opt to go somewhere else, I imagine. In which case, I think Wu is still, the really one of the few viable options for him, which still doesn't solve all his problems, but at least um, you know finally gets rid of that W on his rack, and maybe he can score enough to keep his lead up. But he's going with Ow actually, which is an interesting option. Maybe he's trying to make the lanes more difficult. In the unlikely case where Alec had drawn into a bingo, that is no longer as easy to do. The D line is more difficult. The line underneath East Year is more difficult. And this is interesting because of the fact that the tile pool was looking vowel heavy, and he didn't worry that much about it. He's drawn consonants, so it looks like a good play from Harshan.
Yeah, so Alec now, I think with one more chance, 6 tiles in the bag, I think VIN to the right side of GIB up top is a good way to open up bingo lines for him once again. Even if he doesn't hit a bingo in that spot, he scores well, he holds consonants, pulling into a very vowel-heavy pool, and he sets up a fake. Harshan feels compelled to block up there. Maybe if he draws an S, he can score enough points with an Ahi's play to win this game. That C could also yield big points for him, making ARC and a killer overlap. So Vin, I think, a very nice play for Alec that's going to help him optimize his chances to win this game. After VIN, Alec behind just 13 points and 3 tiles in the bag now. He may not need the bingo to win this game. Harshan with a few scoring options here. If he does want to leave 1 tile in the bag, he'd need to play 2 here. And a great way to do that, Afar, AFAR, and FA, making TAI, sneaks between caught and nailed. That'll leave 1 in the bag, but keep this board wide open. So Harshan instead perhaps opt to block the bingo line set up on the far right column of board. He's got a few ways to do that. Fugios, Fugios, looks to be an awesome way as well. That scores 37 points, empties the bag, and you're basically saying, Alec, you've got 1 shot to get a bingo down now, and there's not really any easy way to do that. Fugios, I think, looks to be a great way for Harshan to win this game.
Yeah, well, and Alec has drawn into a 7, which at this point doesn't play anywhere. However, close to a number of other things. So this is going to be pretty interesting how it plays out. I think Fugios is a very findable play. When you look at that F and that you start to work through the board, that hopefully will jump out at Harshan. But fortunately for him, that looks like it won't quite open up a bingo for Alec. I think like it comes very close to doing so on a number of the anagrams of recloses. There are 2 actually, but doesn't quite result in a bingo back. So if he plays that, it looks like that'll probably do it.
Instead, Harshan playing 2 tiles again. He'll leave 1 in the bag. I think he is so afraid of the bingo coming down, but this will allow Alec potentially to fish 1 more time, or maybe just to outrun. If Alec can pull a high-scoring out in 2 sequence here, that would be devastating for Harshan. I do not like this play. I think he's too fixated on the bingo here and not fixated enough on making sure he scores points. I almost feel like the players may have an incorrect score or something. This doesn't make sense in a game this tight.
Well, there's a ton of pressure, and you're always thinking your opponent is about to bingo. And I think that same paranoia that might be factor in playing nailed earlier is also part of playing of Fa here. Just thinking, oh, let me just kill this line, and I don't know, because truthfully, Alec is not that far off from having bingos through the D that because L and E go along with ow. So I'm not really sure if it's fruitful to be that bingo fearful of bingos, and I think now he's Harshan is in a very bad rack. Alec has a lot of information. He doesn't have perfect information, but he has a lot of information. So if he's able to think through how to optimize his likelihood of going out in 2, that probably is enough to win, especially when he scores with that S. So I think this is going to come down to a few points, and who can squeeze it out. Get your calculators out.
CORE scores 32 points, pulls Alec to within 1, and if Alec is able to pull an out in 1 sequence after that, I think he might just win the game. I'm
It
putting
doesn't
that
seem
in
like there's
now.
any tile. Doesn't seem like there's any tile that is unseen to Alec to which he could draw that he wouldn't be able to come up with an outplay, right? So that's going to give him a certain level of confidence that I can. Oh, if I play cores, for example, and I draw an A, I draw a G, I draw an I draw an O, I draw an R, I draw an S, I draw a U. Hey, I can go out into no matter what. So that is going to probably be the kind of calculus he wants to do. He wants to make sure that, hey, well, let me make sure that I haven't forgotten any awesome plays that are available from Harshan. So he's going to try to work through what are Harshan's plays. Which ones are threats. Do any of them score enough to make the margin too much for me? But if not, he's going to be able to control this and plan his outs and win this game.
So, Alec, I think looking to play cores here, and I think he needs to play cores here. I think he needs to address the Ahi spot, Uraos, Giors. Other plays like that would be devastating for him and would be just enough for Harshan to win after core. I ran it through even after core and Alec hitting a great play like Gales and Spew Me, Uraos is enough to win, but cores, knowing that the G is in the bag from our perspective, will win the game for Alec. Alec obviously does not know that the G is in the bag, and he's got to go through other options, figure out what he may pull and what options that leaves behind for Harshan. But this is exactly what we thought may happen as Harshan foregoes so many points, squanders so much equity with plays like nailed, FA, OW, bypassing scoring options every turn. He set himself up to get bypassed by intermediate plays, and Alec doing a great job crushing those. Roshi and IF and VIN score so well, Harshan scoring so poorly that this 80-point lead for Harshan has evaporated without a bingo coming down from Alec. And Alec, assuming he makes this play of cores, will actually win this game. So COLES instead looks like the play for Alec. I think maybe the R going to give him a little bit more flexibility next turn. But Harshan now AIOORSU, I don't think is going to have enough points on this rack. His best play is Roosa, ROOSA, beneath attended with 5 overlaps for 22. And that is not going to do it. As Alec threatens outs on this next turn, GER playing beneath Yeastier for 15 points, making Neg and ARE. And that's going to win the game for Alec after he catches points on Harshan's rack. Wow.
Yep, it was a battle. Like we saw how the game opened up at the start with just fireworks, big time scores, scoring bingo, scoring non-bingos, and then both players at a certain point ran into some tile trouble. But I think playing with the lead, Harshan was really worried so much about bingos that he, perhaps sacrificed some of his own optimal plays for looking at trying to be defensive, but it just gave a window opportunity for Alec to shave away that lead, and then I'll get into range to take it. And sometimes it's just about tempo. Sometimes it's about few tile draws that could have gone another way, but definitely. When it comes to the last 3 or 4 plays, you can kind of see how the momentum was shifting as Alec sort of chip away and it looked very much like he could catch Harshan, and that's what's happening here.
What a game. What a game. So blocking the obvious plays of like REG or GER beneath, but Alec is still going to be able to score enough. GER goes out for 15. Grade now through that AD goes out for 13. Either of those will do it for Alec. And he will go on to win a narrow victory here.
Yeah, so narrow, in fact, that if one player doesn't give the 5 points, on the challenge, you may be like, whoa, okay, this would have been a little bit more complicated. But I think he has enough of score, plus he's got 8 tiles on his rack. That probably be looking at a margin of about 10 points, maybe 9, 7, or 8 points. I don't know.
Yeah, GER goes out, picks up 8 points from Harshan, and Alec to win 463 to 458, exactly the margin of one challenge, like we saw
Wow.
on Roshi as well. Wow. What a wild game as the American Alec Sjoholm picks up the win over Harshan from the UK, and he will jump up to 8-5 and 2-5 as Harshan drops to 8-3. That was an interesting one. I think both players perhaps left some opportunity on the table, but Alec doing a great job sneaking back into this game despite not bingoing with an 80-point deficit. I have gotten word from our production team that we will be showing the matchup of two Americans, Will Anderson and Conrad Bassett-Bouchard, on board one this time. Hopefully, Conrad doesn't start his game very quickly. Hopefully, we can pull him over here. So that is what our plan is next. Will Anderson and Conrad Bassett-Bouchard. That will be our final game before the lunch break here at the World Scrabble Championship. We're going to take a brief intermission as our production team tries to hunt down those players. But signing off for just a few minutes, I'm Matt Canik, joined by Shan Abbasi of Mississauga, Ontario, and we will be back shortly with more Scrabble. Y'all don't go anywhere.